Good morning. It was 1 week ago that two of our National Guard were shot while on duty right here in D.C. Sadly, Specialist Sarah Beckstrom passed away. She was only 20 years old. I ask that my colleagues join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We are here today to examine a deeply troubling and increasingly dangerous trend, the rise of anti-law enforcement sentiment in our country and the real-world consequences it has for the brave men and women serving in our law enforcement agencies across the country. I want to extend my sincere appreciation to Chairman Guest and Pfluger for their leadership in keeping this issue at the forefront of our committee's work. I'm grateful to them for their efforts in helping to drive this conversation forward. I would also like to welcome Representatives Fong and Walkinshaw as our newest members of the committee. We look forward to working with them to further our shared mission of securing the homeland. Freedom of speech is a cornerstone of our democracy, but the line between criticism and outright incitement is growing thinner, and too often that line is being crossed. Our law enforcement officers play an essential role in upholding the rule of law, protecting national security, supporting our state and local partners, and keeping the American public safe. Yet when anyone seeks to portray law enforcement as enemies of the people, it signals that something is terribly wrong. Recent events across the country illustrate just how serious this problem is. In September, a gunman who is believed to have been intentionally targeting ICE personnel opened fire on officers in Dallas who were transporting detainees to an ICE facility, tragically killing two individuals in ICE custody in the process. That same facility had received a bomb threat only weeks earlier. These are not isolated incidents. They represent a brazen disregard for federal, state, and local agents and officers, as well as innocent bystanders. According to DHS, ICE officers are facing a shocking escalation in threats, including sharp increases in assaults and death threats since immigration enforcement activities began. This dramatic rise underscores the serious risks these officers face in the line of duty. The crisis is not limited to federal law enforcement, though. In New York City, assaults on uniformed NYPD officers have surged by 63% over the last 6 years, with 970 assaults recorded so far this year, compared to 595 at the same point in 2019. These attacks have included alarming incidents such as the Times Square assault on Sergeant Aaron Domsky, the brutal mugging of Officer Chowdhury Nafis in the Bronx, and other violent encounters targeting officers during routine duties. The threat is national in scope. In just 6 days in July, 10 officers were shot across Ohio, Kansas, and New York, leaving 3 dead. Through the end of July, at least 56 new law enforcement officers have been shot in 45 ambush-style attacks. In September, an arrest warrant in York County, Pennsylvania, ended the deadly ambush that killed 3 more officers. These are sadly only a few examples of the many violent attacks targeting law enforcement across the country. Much of this hostility is fueled by rhetoric that spreads rapidly online, rhetoric designed to delegitimize lawful authority and embolden violence against those who wear a badge. Enough is enough. These are not random or isolated events. They are symptoms of a broader attempt to undermine those who have sworn an oath to protect and defend our Constitution. Some perpetrators justify their actions with political grievances. The right to protest is sacred, but it ends where violence begins. When inflammatory rhetoric leads to actions that endanger officers' lives, we enter dangerous territory. Rising hostility erodes morale, fuels burnout, and hinders recruitment and retention for law enforcement. Ultimately, that weakens public safety and national security, harming the very communities activists claim to defend. Law enforcement officers work tirelessly on behalf of our communities, and the situations they face on a daily basis take a heavy toll on their mental health, even in the best of times. In this current environment of increased hostility and violence, those challenges are amplified. Ensuring our officers have the resources and support they need to protect their personal well-being has been a long-standing priority for me and many of my colleagues on this committee. I'm proud to have worked in previous Congresses with Ranking Member Thompson on his legislation that would boost mental health and suicide prevention resources for DHS personnel, and I look forward to continuing that work with him now as chairman. But let us be clear. Law enforcement personnel are public servants, not public figures. When taking the oath, they did not seek celebrity. They stepped forward to safeguard our nation and uphold the laws enacted by this body. But that alone does not absolve them from facing any form of accountability. Public trust and public safety go hand in hand, and I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today about how they believe agencies can strike an appropriate balance between officer safety and law enforcement accountability. Our witnesses today have seen the consequences of this rising harassment and violence firsthand. I hope their testimony reminds my colleagues and the American people that those who wear the badge are human beings whose dedication to safeguarding our country should never make them targets. This includes the local police who protect our communities around the country, as well as U.S. Capitol Police officers and D.C. Metro Police who keep us safe here every day as we work to represent our constituents. Officer Hodges, I acknowledge and appreciate the sacrifices you have made to keep us all safe. As I said then, and I believe now, violence against law enforcement is unacceptable and should always be condemned. We are and must remain a country of law and order. Today's hearing is not about silencing dissent or restricting free speech. It is about responsibility and recognizing that rhetoric has consequences and ensuring that our officers can perform their duties without fear. We are reminded the dangers they face each year when names of fallen heroes are added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial here in Washington, D.C., which honors federal, state, local, and tribal officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice. These solemn moments and acts of remembrance reinforce the reality that each of these officers are human beings who leave behind families and loved ones. We must not become desensitized to this violence or willing to accept these dangerous trends as a new normal. To the brave men and women of law enforcement, you have our full respect and unwavering support. Thank you for your service. I now recognize the ranking member,